Now, as the Conservatives have been dealing with having a big fallout over the crumbling schools and swearing ministers, yesterday Sir Keir Starmer announced his shake-up of his top front bench team. It's likely to be his final shadow cabinet reshuffle before a general election. But is it strong enough to go all the way? What do you think? Do you see him getting the keys to number 10 in the next general election? 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need to let us know your thoughts. Mike, do you think he can do it?
Well, did you see the piece by David Blunkett over the weekend in which David Blunkett says we need a miracle to get an overall majority, to get into Downing Street and have his own government? And I'm sympathetic to that view because also I've read some commentary this morning on the result of the reshuffle he's had, and commentators saying he's treading water. That's what they're doing. They're not being aggressive enough as an opposition. Even Alistair Campbell I saw talking over the weekend saying, he doesn't think that they're getting stuck into enough policies which will, define the true difference between Rishi Sunak's government and Keir Starmer. Now, I also spoke to a Tory MP over the weekend who told me that the battleground is going to be ULEZ, right? They're going to try and smash ULEZ in Greater London and use that as a battering ram to try and,
This is the Conservatives using
This is the Conservatives. They see now a mass insurrection on ULEZ in Greater London. There are ULEZ plans all around the country. I believe they're going to say this could happen to you in your town here.
But hang on a minute. Yeah. It has happened in Birmingham, in Bristol, and it's happened very successfully.
Not to the extent that it covers London.
The problem with ULEZ at the moment, as it is it's not getting the support from central government. So in many ways, it's been weaponised by the Conservatives. This is perfect that they can use it.
I don't want to get stuck into ULEZ because I feel we've given it so much airtime the last couple of weeks.
But I think it's going to be a political weapon, in the election.
Isn't that pathetic that that's all they've got now?
No.
So let's look at health, record waiting lists, migration record numbers, can't stop the boats, tried and failed. Housing, no one can buy a house. Tax rates, highest since World War II. And the fact that you say that it would take a miracle for Labour to have a a majority is so wild because everything is broken.
To be fair, that was David Blunkett who said that.
That could be a theory.
But let's focus a little bit on Keir Starmer. He had a reshuffle yesterday. Some that Mike has alluded to are saying, look, he's not going far enough. Some have accused him for going too much in the centre, leaving the left behind. The accusations is he filled it full of Blairites.
Pulled in the Blairites, pushed out the Corbynites.
But you see, that I don't think that will work. An immediate poll this morning said only 4 members of the shadow cabinet are recognisable to more than 1% of the British people. Now, it's all very well saying bring in the Blairites.
Do you think more of the Conservative current cabinet? Do you think if you stopped a member of the public and you asked them who is Secretary of State for Department...
Not many more, but they've got the advantage of being on the telly every night because they're government ministers, you see. But I don't get the Blairite thing about, it's all OK, we're bringing the Blairites in. The Blairites got chucked out of power after Blair handed over to Gordon Brown and bankrupted the country. So I don't see that as a great endorsement.
If we look back, it was a global economic crash that crashed the economy.
The country went bankrupt.
Put that in the hands of Gordon Brown. But if you look back at 2010, when we last left that government, we had the best NHS. Satisfaction levels were high, housing was good, tax rates were fine. So
we didn't have a COVID pandemic for 3 years.
That's why we're harking back, but pulling in the Blairites because it's the last time that Labour was popular and successful.
Amy, the same question to you then. Do you think he can win the next election?
He will win because he's the least worst option, which is actually kind of breaks my heart to say that, because when he ran for leader of Labour, he was truly visionary with the things that he said, the economic justice, abolishing tuition fees, lifting children out of poverty, and he's kind of gone backwards and backpedaling. And I will agree with you that they are merging into one kind of centrist.
I agree. And centrism is cowardly in my view.
But I think maybe it's just to shuffle into number 10, at which point when they get their keys,
then
they'll whip out the truth.
Some will say that centre is where you win your elections from. Some people will say that. Let's find out what people are saying at home. Yeah. Simon in the Wirral. Good afternoon, Simon. Do you think Keir Starmer can pull it off? Do you think he can get himself elected to number 10?
Well, to tell the truth, I think he'd be the lesser of two evils.
Amy was saying just now,
That's
the
gutting,
least
isn't
worst
it?
choice. But do you think, though, you're being a little bit unfair in the sense that no one in Labour will want to put out their manifesto nice and early for fear that some of those policies might be nicked by the Conservatives? So he's put his team now in for the election, and perhaps in the next 3 or 4 months, you're going to be hearing more about what Labour would do if they got into power.
Well, we've had how many Tory prime ministers in the last year now? 4, and 3 of them have been kicked out.
So what is your point? Are you saying that actually people? I mean, Colville Ranger, Conservative peer, put in the House of Lords by Boris Johnson, was saying earlier when I asked that question on Storm's panel that the public are going to forget about schools, they're going to forget about ULEZ, they're going to forget about everything and judge on competence. And actually, Rishi Sunak has been portraying a level of competence that we haven't seen in previous prime ministers. Do you think he's got a point? Do you think that competence might win over the public back to the Conservatives?
Well, I must say, he certainly does seem to be a much more competent leader than Rishi Sunak at the moment.
Oh,
yes.
You mean Keir Starmer comes across as more competent than Rishi Sunak?
Rishi Sunak, yes.
But he's not doing anything, Simon. You say Sir Keir Starmer is he's better, more efficient. He's not doing anything.
Him to do?
He's
not
treading
in power.
water. He's just treading water and hoping that the Tories do enough to lose the election. He hasn't got any plans to win it.
I think he's just
He hasn't got any plans
terrified
to
with
win
this
it.
whole, they're terrible with money, even though the economy has never been in a worse state, and we've nearly matched our GDP with debt at the moment with this government.
He's terrified of doing a Neil Kinnock.
He's terrified of this myth that Labour are bad with money. So he's doing everything
they
he
are.
can
They are.
to reassure. How? Where's that evidence?
Every Labour government since the war has ended up bankrupting the country. Every one of them.
And what's this Conservative government done now? We're in
The
the
Conservative
worst state
government
than we were
has
in
had to deal with the
2010.
worst world crisis we've ever had, and that costs us an awful lot of money.
But you've just said that there's a world crisis. It wasn't specific to just the UK.
No, it's a world crisis. We had to make a huge contribution.
I beg your
to
pardon.
fixing it.
You're talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, pandemic.
I was referring to 2008.
sorry, pandemic.
Simon, just before we go, what would you like Keir Starmer to do? You're saying he's the lesser of two evils. It's not a great way to win an election. What would you like to hear from him?
Well, I'm afraid all we've got at the moment, I know it's not a two-party system, but it's either really the Labour or the Conservatives. And I know we've got the Liberal Democrats, but when's the last time they really actually won anything due to popularity?
Yeah. They had the coalition government in 2010. Do you agree perhaps
I know, but that was...
Do you agree perhaps with Peg, in a sense, Simon, who said that... I think we might have lost Simon, but Peg made a point earlier of saying that perhaps the electoral system needs to be looked at again. She was saying she hopes for a coalition or parties working
Nothing
together.
happens in coalitions, does it?
But it would if we had proportional representation.
Well, we don't. And last time was a coalition government here, nothing happened. And that's why I fear everybody moving towards the middle ground, because you haven't got any concise policies.
I guess a really, really, really simple way of deciding this is just to consider, are you better off now than you were 13 years ago?
No, you're not, because nobody in the world is, because the world's gone backwards due to economic catastrophe caused by the pandemic.
Mismanagement. Things were better in 2010.
Let me take. Let's speak to Liam in North Yorkshire. Liam, good afternoon. What do you think? Do you think Keir Starmer, can he win the next general election?
He can win if he has a clear vision. However, as a Labour member, I'm desperate for the Tories to be out of power. I want them swept out of power. However, I fear that we have 1992 all over again, where the polls indicated a small Labour majority, but when it came down to the electorate, went to the Conservatives, and Major, I believe, got a 28-seat majority. I fear that will happen.
Why? Why do you fear that will happen now? At the moment, what the polls are saying to us that Labour are two digits, 20, up to 20 points ahead in the polls, certainly a two-digit lead. Of course, all those leads narrow the closer you get to elections. But what where are your fears based, Liam? Why are you so worried?
The lead is soft because Keir Starmer isn't charismatic. When I'm speaking to people as a Labour member, they're saying to me, "What's Keir Starmer's vision? What's he stand for?" And I've had to go, "Well, I have no idea what he stands for because he keeps flip-flopping in all of his policies." Personally, I voted for Lisa Nandy in the leadership election.
And she's just been sort of, she's not been demoted, but she's
been pushed down the ranks.
She's been pushed a little bit further down the rank to the Department of International Development. Liam, what would you like to... I mean, you're saying you're a Labour Party member. What would you like to see Keir Starmer say or do?
A bold vision, a plan for the NHS, a plan for the electoral system. I want him to go on the attack on the Conservatives, take a few risks, stop treading water, stop being safe, show people what he's all about and what he actually stands for.
Liam, can I just say, as a very sensible Yorkshireman, you know, I believe in the common sense of people in the north of England more than the south. I think you can also get caught in the Labour Party on the net zero. The race for green power, I think, is going to backfire because it's now, we're not dwelling on ULEZ, but ULEZ is an example of how the race...
not dwelling on ULEZ, but ULEZ.
Yeah, the race for net zero, the race for green dominance means we're all going to get poorer and we're all going to have another cost of living crisis.
Despite it being remarkably cheaper and creating new jobs.
It's not cheaper. It is not cheaper.
Let's not fall into that pit just yet, because also the race for net zero, as the Americans have proven with their massive pumping of money into the Inflation Reduction Act, can also mean that you're pouring more money into the economy trying to reach net zero. But again,
they've got shale gas as well.
But that's another topic.
Perhaps Keir Starmer is afraid of scaring off people with what your last caller would see as a visionary policy, which is creeping back into why Jeremy Corbyn became so unpopular.
What do you mean green?
No, I don't mean green. I mean more things like renationalisation.
Yeah, and you're talking about this idea that he's treading water. He doesn't want to scare off...
To stay safe.
Yeah, he doesn't
want
to scare off a potential voter. Well, look, we're going to leave that there. Thank you.